Integrity Unit, explaining calmly that the court had an obligation not just to decide cases, but to protect the truth. And the twist deepened when the prosecutor, pale and shaken, requested a recess, because this wasn't just one case anymore, it was many. News broke within hours, and Mallory's name surfaced alongside dismissed cases, overturned pleas, and one wrongful conviction now under review. And while commentators tried to reduce it to race or attitude, those inside the courthouse knew it was about arrogance meeting accountability. Because Judge Carter never mentioned her race or his, never lectured, never grandstanded. He simply applied the law with a steadiness that left no place to hide. Months later, as appeals unfolded and reforms were announced, a reporter asked Judge Carter if the officer's disrespect had influenced his decision, and he replied, "Disrespect reveals character, but evidence determines outcomes." A line that went viral not because it was sharp, but because it was true. And the final twist came quietly when the young man from the traffic stop returned to court, not as a defendant, but as a college student invited to observe proceedings, watching Judge Carter preside with the same calm authority. A reminder that justice doesn't roar when it changes everything. It listens, waits, and then speaks once, decisively, leaving those who mistook silence for weakness to face the consequences of their own certainty. The courtroom was already tense before anyone spoke, the kind of charged silence that hums like electricity just before a storm. And when Officer Mallory Green strode in late with her chin high and boots echoing across the polished floor, she acted like the room belonged to her. Not because she was invited to speak, but because she had spent her career believing a badge was a shield against consequences. And as she rolled her eyes at the clerk, smirked at the public defender, and finally scoffed when Judge Elijah Carter, an unassuming black man with silver at his temples and a reputation for surgical fairness, asked her calmly to approach the stand, no one yet realized they were watching the first domino fall. Mallory had pulled over a teenage driver weeks earlier, a minor traffic stop that escalated into a search, a charge, and now a suppression hearing. And she testified with the same lazy confidence she used on the street, cutting the judge off mid-question, correcting him, loudly, and at one point laughing under her breath when he asked her to clarify probable cause, prompting a ripple of discomfort through the gallery. Because Judge Carter did not raise his voice or show anger, he simply adjusted his glasses and asked again, slower, more precise, a habit forged from decades of listening more than speaking. Yet Mallory mistook his composure for weakness and leaned into her contempt, calling him sir with a tone that drained the word of respect, insisting she knew the law, and suggesting, just barely veiled, that he didn't understand the realities of policing, a line that made even the prosecutor stiffen. And that was when Judge Carter did something unexpected. He stopped the proceeding, dismissed the jury for the morning, and ordered a full review of the body camera footage, dispatch logs, and Mallory's prior testimonies, a procedural move that sounded mundane but carried the weight of a door slamming shut somewhere far above her head, outside the courtroom. Mallory scoffed to colleagues that the judge was playing games, unaware that Judge Carter had once been a civil rights attorney who'd memorized the ways power hid behind procedure. And as the footage rolled in chambers, frame by frame, a different story emerged. Her initial reason for the stop contradicted the timestamp dispatch. Her justification for the search didn't match the audio, and her phrasing echoed testimony from 3 other cases, word for word, like a script. And the twist no one saw coming was that Judge Carter recognized the language because he'd ruled on one of those earlier cases years ago, a case where evidence had been suppressed quietly without public fanfare, and he realized the pattern wasn't sloppiness, it was habit. When court reconvened, Mallory returned cocky, whispering to the prosecutor, glancing smugly at the defendant's family. But the judge's tone shifted from patient to precise as he questioned her again, laying out contradictions gently. At first, then stacking them until her answers tangled. And when she snapped, "Are you accusing me of lying?" The courtroom froze, because Judge Carter didn't answer immediately. He looked at her with something closer to disappointment than anger and said, "Officer Green, the record speaks when we let it." And then he read from the footage, verbatim, exposing the gaps, the rehearsed phrases, the missing cause, and the air drained from Mallory's posture as whispers spread. The verdict itself came later, but the turning point was public and irreversible. Judge Carter suppressed the evidence, dismissed the charges, and then, in a move that stunned the room, ordered the transcript and footage forwarded to Internal Affairs and the District Attorney's Integrity Unit, explaining calmly that the court